In the world of basketball, offense gets the glory but defense? Defense wins championships. Every flashy dunk or jaw-dropping three-pointer is exciting, but what truly crushes an opposing team's spirit is when they can't seem to get past that one relentless defender. The kind of player who takes it personally every time you cross half-court. These defenders didn't just protect the rim or lock down the perimeter, they made entire teams rethink their strategy. Hey basketball fans. If you love the game like I do, hit that subscribe button. Here, we break down the greatest NBA stories, rivalries, and moments that make basketball unforgettable. Join our community of real fans and dive into the heart of the game with us. Now, let's dive into the epic sweat-soaked history of the 15 best defenders in NBA history. These legends turned defense into an art form, and for those unfortunate enough to play against them, it often felt like a nightmare. 1. Bill Russell, the architect of defense. Before there were advanced stats and analytics, there was Bill Russell. At 6 feet 10 inches with a wingspan that could reach across the entire court, or so it seemed, Russell wasn't just a shot blocker, he was a psychological destroyer. He didn't just block shots, he made opponents think twice about even attempting one. His shot blocking wasn't officially tracked during his era, 1950s to 1960s, but if it had been, he'd probably top the all-time list. The Celtics legend was the backbone of 11 championships in 13 years, 1957 to 1969, turning the Boston defense into an impenetrable fortress. He anchored a team that regularly held opponents under 90 points, making him the league's first true defensive mastermind. His mere presence in the paint was enough to force some of the NBA's best to alter their shots, or not take them at all. The idea is not to block every shot. The idea is to make your opponent believe that you might block every shot. Wilt Chamberlain, one of the greatest defensive players ever, was regularly frustrated by Russell's quick feet and long reach. While Wilt could put up 100 points on a given night, Russell was his kryptonite, holding Wilt to some of his worst statistical performances during their epic battles. Russell was a member of 11 all-defensive teams, and although the Defensive Player of the Year award wasn't introduced until after his retirement, it's fair to say he would have owned it. 2. Hakeem Olajuwon, the Dream's nightmare defense. At 7 feet tall, Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon was not just a shot blocker, he was a force of nature. His dream shake on offense was legendary, but his defensive skills were even more intimidating. Over his 18-year career, Olajuwon swatted an incredible 3.3 blocks per game, often leaving opponents looking up at the rim in disbelief. He was the master of timing, and his ability to block shots and recover instantly for the rebound was a nightmare for anyone bold enough to enter the paint. The Dream didn't just block shots, he stalked them. Players like Patrick Ewing and David Robinson, both dominant centers in their own right, were left flailing when Hakeem was on the court. His reflexes were so quick that some shooters would swear he blocked shots before they even left their hands. Olajuwon won 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards in 1993 and 1994 and made 9 all-defensive teams. His combination of quick feet, agility, and length made him one of the most feared defenders in league history. He played mind games with opposing players, making them hesitant to even attempt a shot. Blocking shots is not enough. You have to control them. You have to crush their spirit. 3. Dennis Rodman, the worm in your head. Where do we even begin with Dennis Rodman? At 6 feet 7 inches and barely 210 pounds, Rodman shouldn't have been able to do what he did. But the Worm was more than just a player. He was an enigma, a one-man defensive wrecking ball who made life miserable for forwards and centers alike. Rodman's game wasn't about finesse. It was about pure hustle, intensity, and the ability to outwork everyone on the floor. Rodman won 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, 1990, 1991, and made 7 all-defensive first teams. He wasn't a shot blocker by any stretch, averaging just 0.6 blocks per game, but his ability to guard anyone from centers to shooting guards was uncanny. He shut down Hall of Famers like Karl Malone, Shawn Kemp, and Charles Barkley in the playoffs, making each game a wrestling match in the paint. What made Rodman unique was his rebounding. Despite being undersized, he led the league in rebounding for 7 straight seasons, often grabbing 20-plus boards while also shutting down his man defensively. He was an absolute pest, the kind of guy who'd deny you the ball, talk trash, and then dive into the stands for a loose ball, all in the same play. I don't care if I score 1 point. My job is to grab every rebound and make your night a living hell. 4. Dikembe Mutombo, the finger-wagging giant. Not in my house. If you played against Dikembe Mutombo, you probably heard that phrase multiple times. Standing at 7 feet 2 inches with a wingspan that felt infinite, Mutombo was the NBA's human eraser. His 2.8 blocks per game over his career ranks him among the all-time great shot blockers, and he made opposing teams think twice before attacking the rim. Mutombo won 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards, 1995, 1997, 1998, 2001, and made 6 all-defensive teams. His shot blocking was as much about psychology as it was skill. Every time he swatted a shot, he'd wag his finger at the shooter as if to say, "How dare you?" The more he blocked, the more the finger wag became an iconic part of his persona. Players like Shaquille O'Neal, Alonzo Mourning, and even Michael Jordan had to adjust their approach when facing Mutombo. His combination of size, length, and timing made him one of the most feared defenders in NBA history.
No, no, no. Not in my house. 5. Gary Payton, the glove.
In a league dominated by scorers, Gary Payton was the rare point guard who could shut down the opposing team's best defensive weapon while still running his own team's offense. Nicknamed the glove for his suffocating defense, Payton's ability to lock down opposing guards was unmatched. He wasn't just quick, he was relentless. Payton won Defensive Player of the Year in 1996, the only point guard to ever win the award, and made 9 all-defensive first teams during his career. His defense was especially brutal in the 1996 NBA Finals, where he was tasked with guarding Michael Jordan. And while nobody could completely shut down Jordan, Payton made him work for every point, something few players could say. The glove's tenacity, footwork, and trash-talking were legendary. He got into his opponents' heads, often talking so much that players forgot about the game and focused on shutting him up. That's exactly what Payton wanted. "If I'm not in your head, I'm not doing my job. I'm going to lock you down, and I'm going to let you know about it." 6. Ben Wallace, the undrafted Wall. Ben Wallace's path to becoming one of the best defenders of all time was as unconventional as it gets. Undrafted out of college, Ben Wallace proved that it's not where you start but where you finish that counts. At just 6 feet 9 inches, Wallace was often undersized for a center, but his heart, hustle, and strength made him a defensive legend. Wallace won 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards, 2002, 2003, 2005, 2006, and made 6 all-defensive teams. His combination of shot blocking, 2.0 blocks per game, and rebounding, he led the league in rebounds twice, made him the backbone of the Detroit Pistons' infamous go-into-work defense, which helped the Pistons capture the 2004 NBA championship. Wallace's defense on Shaquille O'Neal in the finals is the stuff of legend, as he held the Diesel to some of his worst numbers in the postseason. It's not about size. It's about heart. Defense is all heart. 7. Kawhi Leonard, the silent assassin. Unlike many of the other great defenders, Kawhi Leonard doesn't talk trash. He doesn't need to. His defense speaks for him. At 6 feet 7 inches with enormous hands and a 7 feet 3 inches wingspan, Leonard is one of the most versatile defenders in NBA history. He can guard any position from point guard to power forward, and often does. Leonard won 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, 2015, 2016, and made 7 all-defensive teams. His hands are so large that they've become something of a legend themselves. He's capable of stealing the ball from a player and palming it in one fluid motion. He's locked down some of the greatest scorers in NBA history, including LeBron James and Kevin Durant, and his ability to seamlessly switch between guarding different players makes him a defensive juggernaut. I'm not here to talk. I'm here to stop you. 8. Kevin Garnett, the intense maestro. If there was one word to describe Kevin Garnett on defense, it would be intensity. Standing at 6 feet 11 inches with the agility of a guard, Garnett could guard anyone, anywhere, at any time. His trash talk was legendary, but it was his relentless pursuit of perfection on defense that made him one of the all-time greats. Garnett won Defensive Player of the Year in 2008 and made 9 all-defensive teams. His ability to switch on defense, combined with his shot-blocking prowess, 1.4 blocks per game, allowed him to disrupt defensive schemes all by himself. The 2008 Boston Celtics, led by Garnett's defense, were one of the best defensive teams of all time, and KG's intensity was the heart of that championship squad. Anything is possible when you lock down your man. 9. Tim Duncan, the quiet protector. Unlike most players on this list, Tim Duncan didn't need to say anything to dominate on defense. At 6 feet 11 inches, Duncan's calm demeanor belied his ferocious ability to block shots and control the paint. He wasn't flashy, but he was always in the right place at the right time. Duncan made an incredible 15 all-defensive teams, the most in NBA history, and averaged 2.2 blocks per game over his 19-year career. His footwork and basketball IQ made him one of the most efficient defenders ever. Players like Kobe Bryant and Dirk Nowitzki often struggled against Duncan's length and patience. I just do my job. Nothing more, nothing less. 10. Scottie Pippen, the do-it-all defender. At 6 feet 8 inches with long arms and even longer legs, Scottie Pippen was the ultimate perimeter defender. He made 10 all-defensive teams and had the versatility to guard any position. Pippen's defense was a key factor in the Chicago Bulls' 6 championships during the 1990s. His ability to shut down opposing stars, from Magic Johnson to Clyde Drexler, allowed Michael Jordan to focus more on offense, knowing Pippen had everything under control on defense. Defense wins championships.
Period.
11. Michael Cooper, the Lakers' secret weapon. While Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar were the stars of the Lakers' Showtime era, Michael Cooper was their defensive backbone. Cooper made 8 all-defensive teams, shutting down the league's best scorers. He wasn't a big shot blocker, 0.6 blocks per game, but his tenacity on the perimeter made him invaluable to the Lakers. 12. Alonzo Mourning, the emotional leader. Alonzo Mourning's shot-blocking ability was legendary. At 6 feet 10 inches, with an intense work ethic, Mourning averaged 2.8 blocks per game over his career and won 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, 1999, 2000. His shot blocking anchored the Miami Heat defense for years, making him a two-way threat who was always a step ahead of opposing players.
13. Sidney Moncrief, the forgotten legend.
Sidney Moncrief was the first recipient of the Defensive Player of the Year award, winning it twice, 1983, 1984. His defense was so elite that he made 5 all-defensive teams and could guard any player, regardless of position.
14. Marcus Camby, the defensive force.
At 6 feet 11 inches, Marcus Camby was a shot-blocking savant. He won Defensive Player of the Year in 2007 and averaged 2.4 blocks per game over his career, leading the league in blocks 4 times. His long arms and defensive awareness made him one of the best paint protectors of the 2000s.
15. Bruce Bowen, the perimeter specialist.
If you needed a guy to shut down the other team's best scorer, Bruce Bowen was your man. While he wasn't a shot blocker, 0.5 blocks per game, his ability to stay in front of players like Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and Ray Allen earned him 8 all-defensive team selections and 3 NBA championships with the San Antonio Spurs. These 15 defenders didn't just guard their opponents, they haunted them. With blocks, steals, and sheer mental toughness, these legends set the gold standard for NBA defense, turning games into battles and championships into wars of attrition. If offense wins fans, defense wins titles, and these players proved it every time they stepped on the